Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning. Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Asana Keretano. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
A kind of wet Monday morning.
Yeah, it's a little gloomy out.
There were some rains overnight, at least in my neck of the woods.
That's right, and it does look like there might be a downpour very soon, but we'll be giving you your weather update in just a few. Of course, our forecasters advised us last week that there would be a tropical wave passing through at the end of the weekend, so it's a lot less moisture than I had first anticipated.
Nonetheless, it was a rather eventful weekend. Quite a lot has happened in terms of things that we're going to be preparing for, the different changes that we're going to be facing this week as well.
That's right. And so because we have a lot to get into with our Eye on the News, we're going to jump right into our motivation for today. That means it's time for our Eye Opener. Our Eye Opener, taken from dailyom.com, goes like this. Seeing the world from another perspective can introduce you to all sorts of hidden treasures. The ocean can look very different depending on whether you're standing at the shore, soaring above in a plane, or swimming beneath its waves. Likewise, a mountain can look very different relative to where you are standing. Each living thing sees the world from its unique vantage point. Meanwhile, a beetle sees only a massive and never-ending tree trunk. Yet all three of you are looking at the same tree. Sometimes there are experiences in life that from your vantage point may seem confusing, alarming, or worrisome. Or there may be events that look insignificant from where you're standing right now. Try seeing them from another point of view. Bury your face in the grass and look at the world from a bug's vantage point. Explore your home as if you were a small child. Take a ride in a small aircraft and experience the world from a bird's eye view. Just as kneeling down sometimes helps you to see more closely when you're looking for lost treasure, so can standing back help you appreciate the broader picture of what you're looking at. In doing so, you'll experience very different worlds.
The beauty of this eye-opener this morning is that it reminds us about perspective,
right?
Points of view, and vantage point, right? Those three things you can use interchangeably, but it allows us to be able to see things from a different angle, depending on where you are. When you look at issues or situations that you find yourself in, oftentimes you're only seeing it from one point of view, particularly because you're in the middle of that issue or situation. When someone else is on the outside looking in, they are able to share with you a different point of view that would in some cases allow you to be able to approach the issue or the situation differently. And I like the idea of the perspective, the aerial perspective. Like if you're looking at the blue hole, for instance, right? When you're on water,
you
see a vast expanse of blue, but you can't put it into perspective. When you're above it, then you see that it's a circle that is fringed by corals, and it gives you a totally different appreciation for it. And I can imagine that diving in the blue hole is another experience altogether from beneath. And so it just reminds us of the idea of putting things into context or perspective.
Absolutely. You know, and I think that it's one of those skills that you have to actively work on. Being able, it's perspective taking. you know, clearly each one of us have a different experience,
Yeah.
and each one of us have different responsibilities. And very often, when you are looking from your sole perspective, you only see it your way. And it comes with sometimes perhaps developing a level of empathy, being able to attempt to put yourself in someone else's shoes, or just allowing yourself to have that macro picture. Okay, how would this fit in, and how would I fit in? We see it all the time, I think, especially when there are divisive issues in our community. And, you know, I think one of the things in one of my experiences is learning right here on this show. The more perspectives we get, we understand sometimes why there is an issue, or sometimes you're able to really put it all into perspective, that people are just seeing things from their own personal experience. And it doesn't mean that what they're experiencing or what they feel is wrong. It's just that not everyone is fully acquainted with what they may be experiencing.
Yeah.
So it's such an important skill set. And I think that's something you can allow yourself. I love the idea of getting on the floor and looking at the world like the kids do.
Yeah.
That has to be an interesting one, because we don't think very often of what their experience must be like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good eye opener.
Great one
Great
to
one,
get
yep.
our day started. Ooh, and we got our weather on the line already. We got Shania Young with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I am good.
All right, Shania, it looks bleaky outside. What's the weather going to look like?
So moist and unstable conditions continue to linger over the area. And in the 24-hour forecast, it's for cloudy spells with a few showers, isolated thunderstorms, and periods of rain this morning, but decreasing this afternoon, and then just redeveloping over southern areas tonight.
The south has been getting a lot of rains, right?
Yes, so we do have a flood alert for the possibility of flooding in low-lying areas generally, but especially over the Toledo district. Overnight, close to Golden Stream, has received about 5 inches of rainfall so far.
Okay.
Between 9 o'clock last night and now this morning.
And with more rain to come today?
Yes, later on tonight.
Okay.
Well, later today and then tonight again for the south.
All right. And what about our winds?
The winds will be from the east at 10 to 20 knots, and the sea conditions will be moderate.
All right. How will this be impacting our temperatures?
So during the day today, high temperatures along the coast will be 85 degrees Fahrenheit, 88 inland, and 79 in the hills. And tonight, it will be 79 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 72 inland, and 65 in the hills.
All right. Now, for the next few days, what can we expect?
So for Tuesday and Tuesday night, a few showers and isolated thunderstorms will continue most over the south and some coastal areas. And for the remainder of the week, it should become a bit drier with just isolated showers or thunderstorms.
All right. And turning our eyes to the tropics, is there anything we need to be monitoring?
Well, at this time, no. There's 2 areas that has a low chance of development. One of them is expected to go to the northwest. That is the one most farthest over the tropical North Atlantic, and there's another tropical wave over the eastern Caribbean Sea.
Yeah.
At this time, it has a low chance in the next 5 days, but they are monitoring it and expect it to gradually develop later toward the end of this week as it moves over the southwestern Caribbean. So that one we might need to keep an eye on, but at this time, it doesn't pose a threat to us, and it's not a low, it's just an active tropical wave.
And
That
what
is
direction
expected
is
to
the
form
wave?
an area of low pressure.
What direction is the wave moving?
It's moving west-northwestward
Okay. Yeah.
at this moment.
So we got to keep an eye on that one.
Yes, that one. But right now, it still has a low chance, so we'll just continue to monitor it over the next few days.
All right. And any other update?
No, there's no other tropical system in our area or the Gulf of Mexico at this time.
All right. Well, Shania, thank you very much for that update.
You're welcome.
You have a great day.
You too. Bye.
There you have it. More moisture, at least for today, and definitely in the south. So if you are living in a low-lying area in the south, you do want to consider that there is the possibility of a flood.
Yeah. All right.
And so with that, we are going to shift gears and get to looking at the news from the weekend and the news in the week ahead. So please, let's shift now to Eye on the News.
We begin with the statement or the position that has been taken by the Central Health Region, the lab, on Friday with respect to their working hours and the fact that they are no longer going to be conducting tests over the course of the weekend. Right? And so we look at that in the context of what has been happening with the increase in numbers for COVID-19. We also look at that, in the context of the overall COVID situation where we have vaccinations underway as well. So that's from a broad perspective. To zero into certain aspects of that conversation is to say that there is an issue regarding overtime, and personnel from the Central Medical Laboratory have raised this issue on previous occasions, that the hours that they are working versus the payment, the salaries that they're collecting, it does not reflect the overtime hours. And so they have exceeded what would ordinarily be the number of hours per week. And so that being the case, their position now that they're no longer going to be working on the weekends, that simply means that we won't be getting the aggregate number of tests conducted and the results in the timely manner in which we were once able to get that. It also means that if you're taking a PCR test or other tests or what have you, you cannot go through the Central Medical Lab over the course of the weekend to be able to get that done. So it's now basically a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 thing. So that's the first one that I wanted to touch on there.
I think we're going to see, especially today, what the impact of that is going to be, because as we know, the Central Medical Lab, while it does process tests for Central Health Region, it also does testing for other parts of the country that are sent over there. And the issue, ties back to some of the cost-saving measures that we talked about quite a bit earlier on this year, looking at the fact that they have been put under a 10% cut, and there are certain restrictions with overtime hours. And so changing the hours, and I understand it's kind of a shift in schedule that would mean that the hours that they have to put in before they meet the overtime threshold would be a bit longer, is a major issue of concern for them. And they are saying, they've been putting in so many hours over the course of this pandemic. I think, to quote from their letter, they say they feel like it's a slap in the face.
And the Minister of Health and Wellness on Friday, when we spoke with him at the groundbreaking ceremony for the polyclinic in Keekawker, does attest to the fact that there's a dire need for nurses at this point, and for medical personnel, should I say, because of the overwhelming situation with COVID numbers.
And I was going to say on that point, we have talked with representatives of the nurses as well, and they have always expressed that this would be an issue for them. This specific incident is talking about the lab technicians, those who process the tests, but I think the healthcare system in general is very overwhelmed with this third wave, and so, issues like these will probably pop up more.
All right, so the other piece of news coming out of the entire COVID picture, as I had mentioned earlier, is the fact that vaccinations for persons 12 to 17 years old are underway. And so you look at, and I just wanted to tie this together, because you look at the fact that that exercise began over the course of the weekend, but today we're also looking at the fact that high schools, secondary schools are reopening, but online nonetheless. But if you look at it from a preparatory standpoint, right, this is part of the process that a student of high school age would have to undergo as part of gradually getting back into the classroom. So you look at it from that point of view, and you can appreciate that the 100,000 Pfizer vaccines that are in the country for this particular purpose are being used to inoculate students between 12 and 17 years old.
Yeah, and that is mostly the secondary and tertiary level population, and maybe just standard 6 and possibly some standard 5 students from primary. But right now I know they're working with, they're administering the vaccines to the secondary and tertiary level specifically. Here we see some teenagers getting the vaccination there. You know, what's interesting about this phase of the rollout is that while the target population is different, those who are going to accept the vaccine, it's going to be the parents. You know, it has to be the parents that would give consent for their children to be able to access the vaccine. In my mind, I think that it makes the vaccine rollout look promising, for the simple fact that we have over 150,000 adults who have already accessed the vaccine. So there is a growing number of population people out there getting vaccinated on a daily basis, and I'd assume that if they have accessed the vaccine for themselves, they have done sufficient research and read up on getting their children protected as well.
Yeah. But I mean, there's also what we discussed last week as well, the fact that since it has to do with minors and the decision resting with the parents, there are some parents who are against getting vaccinated, and so it'll be interesting how that plays out in respect of the rollout as well. Right? So that's just, you know, the other side of the coin, proverbially speaking. All right, so that covers most of what we're discussing for the COVID situation. There's one other thing. There's a pending statutory instrument.
That's right.
And then under that, we can safely say that, as mentioned by the Prime Minister on Friday, the sale of alcohol is prohibited after 6 o'clock with effect today, right? And establishments are now back to 50% capacity. This would be restaurants and other eateries. We're down to 50% of what these particular establishments can hold as part of the SI.
Yeah, and while we await the latest numbers on COVID-19, we do know that we are in the midst of a third wave. And the Delta variant is particularly spreading a lot faster than we've seen in previous waves, and more people are being impacted. So I know that we await to see the details of the statutory instrument to see exactly what new regulations will come in place. The Prime Minister outlined a few of them in an interview last week, but of course I'm sure there are far more details that will have to be considered. I know the buzz over the weekend was his statement about the fact that the lockdown has been considered. It's not, we're not going under a lockdown, but he essentially said that if we can't get it under control, then that's something that they will explore.
Yeah. And I guess it's also safe to say that the number of active cases have been raging in Belize district. So that's part of the consideration being made in terms of the lockdown, the proposed or the idea of the lockdown.
And we know early on they'd said that that was not something that they were going to consider, a countrywide lockdown. And by his explanation last week, it does seem that it's more targeted approach. The difference is, though, that a lockdown in a place like Belize City does have huge ramifications as well in terms of what it will do for businesses. So it doesn't sound like it is their first consideration, but clearly they have to regain control of the situation in Belize City.
All right, so we'll wrap up our conversation on COVID with that, and then we move to other issues and events that have taken place over the course of the weekend. So we woke up on Saturday morning to tragic news of a double homicide and a suicide in the Kings Park area, where a young man, 26 years old, took the life of a female police officer and her daughter before taking his own life. And so the image of the bodies being removed out of the house, I guess those images were on social media. I saw a few of them. Was like very jarring in terms of, you know, seeing something like this play out, where you have young people. I say young because the individual was 26 years old, the female minor was 17 years old, and the mother, I believe, was 34, something around that. And so neighbors were alerted the night before, this would be Friday, to what sounded like gunshots. And so the police were called in, and when the responding officers arrived on the scene, the place was locked, right? And so these individuals were inside the residence, and so the officers had to gain entry by forcing their way through. Aside from that, however, they were able to ascertain that there was no other form of entry. So it's not as if though someone broke in and committed this horrendous act. And so they were able to say, because they found the weapon as well, that this was a case where the individual took both lives before turning the weapon on himself. What precipitated this, we really don't know at this point. I believe that the investigators are conducting a probe to see what the circumstances that resulted in this would have been. But nonetheless, it's a very tragic situation. And of course, our hearts go out to the families of everyone involved in this incident. And of course, to the Belize Police Department that's grieving the loss of one of their own.
There you have it. That's a photo of PC Arlie Young, who is stationed at Precinct 1. There were a lot of people, too, from San Pedro who were pouring out their condolences, as she'd spent some time working there. You know, it is definitely one of those scenarios, and we get stories every now and again that you just feel like it's a gut punch. Because it's just so tragic what has taken place. The age is one, but it's also, I think, and Minister Musa put a post out yesterday, and I think he highlighted one of the fundamental issues, that we just never know what people are dealing with at home. And so often, you know, people are going about trying to do their work, and there's a total neglect for the challenges that people may be having, whether it's mental health issues or if they're facing domestic issues at home. And so we have to take the time to pay closer attention to what's going on. It is, as you mentioned, being deemed a double homicide and suicide due to the circumstances that they found the bodies. And I believe the perpetrator was found with a gun in his hand as well. But we'll probably never know exactly what took place that evening, but the fact that all these lives have been cut short, I think is just a tragedy all around.
And then the final bit, again, it's also bad news, but it's the reality that we're facing. About a week or two ago, there was a missing persons report placed on a young man from the Farbers Road area, where his mother had reported that she last saw her son when he was going out to purchase food, and this was right before the curfew time. And he never returned, and it was unlike him. This is a description given by the mother at the time. It was unlike him that he would not have gotten back in touch with his family, and he basically just vanished. And this was against the backdrop, if I may, that there was a birthday for that individual's child that was coming up, and that he was going to buy a bucket of ice cream to celebrate his birthday, the birthday of the child. And so that never happened. The sad news was that the body, the decomposing body of this young man, was found over the weekend as well, near mile 3.5 on the George Price Highway. And so this is a very tragic end for this particular family. Nonetheless, it sort of brings some closure that they were at least able to, find the body and proceed to give him some kind of proper send-off, right? But you look at that, Marlene, in the context of everything that's happening in Belize City. There's a state of emergency because of the spike in violent crimes. We're not saying that this may have been the result of gang activity or what have you, but we're just looking at it from a broad perspective where we're saying that all of these kinds of incidents are what triggered the state of emergency for 10 respective areas within Belize City.
Yeah. There's also an extensive list put out on Friday for persons who are still wanted, who the police were not able to get in their sweep last week as we face yet another state of emergency in the country. And this is, I'm not sure how many of those persons have been detained so far.
Yeah.
But that is, of course, something we saw in previous times when there were states of emergencies as well.
Yeah. So that rounds off our conversation for the morning. Remember, in terms of the COVID numbers, we will be able to have that information for you a little later in the day in our newscast in terms of the numbers of persons who are still wanted under the SOE, as you've mentioned. We'll get an idea from the police department later on this morning to see how many of those individuals they've been able to capture. So details of all of those stories that we've mentioned will be in our 6 o'clock newscast. Of course, you can catch it live. You can also catch it on social media via Facebook or on YouTube. So that does it for the Eye on the News.
All right, and now it's time for us to get moving into our conversations for today. And, Isani, we were talking earlier about different perspectives. Today, we're adding a new perspective to the situation of education in the country. We've spoken with the ministry, we've seen reports from schools and from parents, and today we get to hear from the Belize National Teachers Union as to how things have been progressing on their end in working along with the ministry and the schools in getting school started again.
All right, so that is a two-part conversation we're having with President Elena Smith of the BNTU. And then our second conversation is to discuss Belize's first culture symposium, right? That is from this 1st to this 3rd of September. And so we'll catch up with several people who are involved in this upcoming symposium. That's our second conversation.
All right, so that's what we have in store for you this morning. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by the president of the BNTU. So please stay.
It's a fact that with Smart, you get truly unlimited everything. Only with Smart, you get unlimited data anytime. While with the other guy, it's only double data on weekends. With unlimited data every day with Smart, there's no need to wait. So, it's a fact that our unlimited plans beat the competition. Stop being measured and told when to use your data and get unlimited talk, text, and data. Experience the true unlimited plans with Smart. That's a fact. Make the switch and live smart.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform.
Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go.
You will be able to make quick, easy payments, simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code.
Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle.
The future is here with eCash.
For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
Introducing Edam A cheese, the A+ Dutch cheese to hit the Belizean market. As the name says, it is of A-class quality, the best Dutch cheese in Belize. Edam A cheese is creamier, less salty, and simply more delicious. Don't be left out. Get your A cheese at a supermarket near you. A cheese exclusively distributed by Unitex Company Limited. Call us at 610-3626 or 610-8910. Follow us on Facebook at Unitex Belize.
Here are 3 reasons why people choose Dunis as their #1 store. Reason 1, for loans of up to $1,000 in cash for unexpected emergencies. The process is quick and easy. Reason 2, for a wide variety of household items such as smart TVs, washers and dryers, stoves, refrigerators, freezers, cookware, back-to-school supplies, and much more. Check out our comfortable sofa sets in various sizes and styles. And reason 3, we are agents for Western Union, where you can send or receive money in minutes or pay all your utility bills and avoid waiting in long lines. And don't forget, Dunis provides layaway plans and credit on all household items. So make the right choice and shop for the best quality products at competitive prices with friendly customer service.
Dunis, located at number 57 Albert Street, Belize City, and in Corozal at number 8 Park Street South. Give us a call at 280-5209, 650-6580, or 422-3342. Dunis!
This Monday on Get the Facts. What are the risks for children with the new COVID variant? Should you vaccinate your child? When will children be able to return to the classrooms? Get the Facts with pediatrician Dr. Cecilia Eck, Ministry of Health Dr. Natalia Baer, and CEO of the Ministry of Education, Diane Mejia. The show starts at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, August 23rd. Catch it live on Channel 5 or streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Send your questions to 672-5555 or via Facebook using hashtag #GetTheFacts.
How does the AstraZeneca vaccine work? The vaccine provides support to help your body develop immunity to the virus that causes COVID-19. The body is left with a supply of memory cells that will remember how to fight the virus. It takes a few weeks for the body to produce the antibodies after vaccination. How long does it take to build immunity after taking the first dose of the vaccine? There is protection 14 days after a person's first dose. However, that initial protection may decline over time, which is the reason why it is so important to get the second shot. How long after the first dose should one take the second dose? The second dose should be given between week 8 and week 12. Are there any deaths associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine? There have been no deaths associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine. Vaccines save lives. They remain the safest, most effective, and cost-effective medical tool developed. Increased uptake of the vaccine is the best way to stop this pandemic, save lives, and return to normalcy.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. We begin our first conversation of the morning with Senator Elena Smith. He is the president of the Belize National Teachers Union, and of course, We're going to be discussing everything that has to do with education amid the COVID pandemic. That being said, good morning, Senator Smith. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Belize, and thank you for having us.
Where do we stand at present? Today is the first day of school for persons who are either starting high school or returning to high school for that matter. We're in the throes of a third wave of infections, and the decision has been made to push back actual face-to-face instructions to sometime in October. In the context of that, what can you share with us in terms of the position of the teachers' union, perhaps based on conversations you've had with members?
Okay, so as we look forward to the reopening of school, a lot of our teachers, based on what we heard from them and what we've seen, them, posting that sort of thing, were eagerly awaiting seeing their students after so long. But as we looked at the cases rising, we realized early on that this would not become a reality. Even before the ministry made the announcement or the pronouncement, we knew that looking at, especially Belize City, we see where our cases go up so much on a daily basis, that this might not have been the best time to reopen for face-to-face classes. And so when the announcement was made, teachers were not relieved that they could not return to the classroom, but they were relieved that a decision was made seeing where we are in terms of numbers, because we are concerned not just about our teachers but about our students as well. And we have seen now where even if you have gotten your 2 shots, you are still able to contract, you're able to transmit. And that is a concern for many of our teachers and our parents as well. So I don't think the concern was returning to the classroom, but rather if we were able to return fully and not just go back and then have to close down in 2 weeks' time. That was a huge concern for our teachers as well, because going back and having the children in the classroom and then suddenly you have to say, okay, stay home because of the situation, that was a huge concern.
Yeah.
The online is another huge concern, has always been, will continue to be, because we don't believe that our students are as prepared as they ought to be for online classes, one, in terms of devices, in terms of access. And even our teachers, a lot of our teachers, had to go out of their way, had to struggle a bit to get their devices for the new school year. With the cut in salary, and all that is happening, some of them are preparing for the classroom, some of them have internship. So a lot of little issues that were happening that teachers were concerned about. But all in all, we know that our teachers will do their best to ensure that students are engaged in the online classes.
Now, the preparation, I think, leading up to just last week was about going back into the classroom. And there had to be that period where the Ministry of Education would go in and check the schools and ensure that everything was up to par. While I know that's gone on pause, what was the feedback you got from the schools in terms of what it took to get the school ready for face-to-face?
Well, we didn't do any checks this year, but for the last school year, it was a struggle for many of our schools. I went around to several of the rural areas, especially in the Orange Walk district and the Corozal district, and the concern was the cost of putting all of those things, in the school. So, for example, the wash hand basins, having to run pipes, and a lot of those principals who we met made mention that, listen, we are not getting much help from the management, if any at all. At the time, the ministry went and just delivered maybe 2 basins, and it was just delivered and it was left there, nothing else. And so they had to figure out how they were going to get the funds to install those basins, to buy pipes, all of those things. And so without the help of some of the community members, a lot of those schools would not have been able to have what they put in place for the reopening of school. So it was really and truly difficult on a lot of the principals. We have some schools right now, some rural schools right now, who still are not fully ready for face-to-face. And when I say ready in terms of what the ministry had expected the schools to have to cater for the number of students that they have, some of our schools are still not ready, but what can they do?
Yeah.
If it is that they have to open, they have to open, and they have to try and do with what they have.
Does the postponement of face-to-face instructions at this point buy time, so to speak, for them to be able to at least try to get up to scratch with these requirements?
The issue is not necessarily time, the issue is finances.
Okay.
So if these parents, because they were out, many of them didn't pay their school fees. And we know that a lot of them couldn't afford because of the situation. In normal times, you hardly get 100% of your school fees paid. And we know that many of our schools, most of our schools, use those fees for them to be able to, to purchase what they need to purchase for the school, do repairs, all of those things. And if they don't do fundraising in between that, they won't be able to assist their schools. And so the issue for those schools is funding, not necessarily time, but funding.
Senator, I'm glad you brought up that point, because that has been a hot button issue in the public domain for quite a bit. Since the announcement of return to distance and online schooling, many parents are now questioning whether or not they should have to pay the full fees as the schools would normally collect during a regular year. Now, we've heard from the school saying, hey, listen, yes, this is, perhaps you are not using the computer lab, but we still have to pay electricity bills or stuff like that. So there's a maintenance needed, but for parents who are especially cash-strapped in this economy, they're saying, I don't think it's fair for me to pay it. Where does the union stand on this issue?
Well, Marlene, as a parent myself, I can understand those parents. Because when you have to find, for example, over $1,000 to pay for the school year, for things that you know that your child will not be using any at all for that year, at least parents are saying, at least give us a discount. Because we know that the schools have bills to pay, but my child isn't using the lab, my child isn't, using any bathroom facilities. There's no need for security to be paid because we are not there. So there are certain of the costs included in the fee that parents are saying, listen, if you can't wipe it off completely, then give us a discount because our child would not be at school. And I can understand that from a parent's perspective. I can understand that. From the school's perspective, I can understand that, yes, even though you are not here, we still have bills. But even though you still have bills, those bills might be reduced because you don't have the students there, using electricity, using water. You don't have to pay certain persons to be there. You still have to maintain the grounds, yes. But I am sure that the cost would have lessened by not having students on the compound for the entire year. And so I believe it's something that maybe the ministry should have a discussions with those managements to discuss, what would be the best way that we can help our parents in this kind of situation, and what is the best offer that you can give to your parents in terms of them not being in school. Because for last school year, we weren't in school. My child wasn't in school any at all for the whole of the school year, but I still had to pay that $1,600, $1,700 for the school year. So I understand where parents are coming from.
Who makes the decision as to whether or not they'll alter the fees? Is it the managing authority?
The managing authority, yes, makes those decisions, but the ministry has some input in that. And so I believe that the ministry can have those discussions with those managements, and see how best they can work out something for those, especially secondary school. Because primary school isn't as costly for some, isn't as costly as secondary schools.
You mentioned earlier one of the primary concerns being the issue of devices, especially since we're reverting back to online lessons. Speak to us on that, because as far as I understand, at some point there was a rollout of devices to students who were doing the online courses. I also gather that some of those devices were in need of repair, and so you have a situation now where students are without devices at the beginning of the school year. Can you expand on that for us?
Yes, as we understand, the devices would have been for first and second form students. And when they needed repairs, they had to be taken back, and then those had to be sent somewhere here in the city for repairs. And then we are understanding from some parents that, parents who are teachers, that for some schools you end up having to pay about $2,000 or so for the repair of those computers. And if you take back the computers and you don't or you can't pay for those repairs, then you won't have one the following school year. So that poses a huge concern for those parents who really and truly cannot afford. So if you are giving me a device, you are buying these things, you are giving out these devices, and you don't bring, for example, the parts that are needed to repair these things, then it's like, what are you bringing? So I have to go and do the repairs. You know, parents were saying, well, maybe it would be best if the devices were sold to the students and they pay a monthly fee, you know, for that, and then the repairs would fall on the parents, and so you would always have one, or at least they would try their best to have one. But if you have to take it back to the school and you have to wait for these persons or these companies to repair them, it takes some time. So that has been a concern from some of the parents that we have who are teachers, the cost of getting back those devices. So I don't know how or what they will do to ensure that those students who don't have will be getting a replacement device. I don't know how that will work out. I haven't heard anything from the ministry in terms of that area.
Well, I think the last time there was the reopening of school and there was the allowance for face-to-face, there were surveys being done with parents about whether or not they had access to devices and what preference they had. I haven't heard as much of that this time around, but we do know that there are still families who don't have the same level of access to technology as other households. What's the concern from teachers at this time about the inequity that is extending?
Again, a huge concern. We have had that those comments being shared with us for almost a whole year last year.
Yeah.
And it's not just for students, as you know, it's including teachers as well, because you are in some areas and your internet keeps dropping. You know, by the time you are trying to explain something, internet goes either for you or for the children. You have to come back. So it has been a lot of concerns, issues as it relates to the internet issue, connectivity issue. And you know that you saw the news with the young man from Wesley, you know, how he went to school using just his phone. I mean, so you will have some parents and some students who will really and truly try their best and do whatever they can to ensure that they are engaged. But then you will have others who maybe they might not know better and they don't know how to use the devices, and so they would not push their children, or the children won't push themselves. You know, when you're in the classroom in front of a teacher, it's easier for you to be engaged than when you're behind a computer or behind a phone. So,
sorry, go ahead.
So we have to ensure, and I don't know how we're going to do it, but we have to ensure that these students have these devices and they are able to work in the environment that they are. Teachers are critical as well. So you know that the ministry is now giving teachers a data plan for them to be able to work from home. But the thing, even though I get a data plan at a discounted rate, if my area has connectivity issues, then I will still have some issues. I will still have problems.
Which brings me to this question. How does that play out in the context of the remote villages, for instance, in the south of the country, where perhaps two things are at play here? Access to internet and, of course, access to the devices as well. How does that play out?
Those areas would then have to do packages because there's no way. I mean, you know, when you go down south, by the time you get to certain areas, you have no service any at all. And so
or you switch over to the Guatemalan.
Correct. So we see where sometimes we are having our meetings and our vice president who lives in Pueblo, he has to be on a hill or in a tree or something trying to get access so that he can stay in the meeting. And that is the same for our students. So those areas would have to be giving packages as opposed to going online. It's not feasible for them. They have no access any at all. I mean, if you go to Graham Creek, for example, there's nothing that you can do in terms of internet services at Graham Creek at this point in time. So those have to be packages sent home to parents. The concern that we have heard with regards to packages, that teachers take time to prepare these packages and they send them home, and sometimes they don't get them back. When they do get them back, half of the work is complete. The other half is missing, and if they send them back for completion, they don't get them back. So again, there has to be some seriousness on the part of all parties. If I am sending the work home to you, you have to ensure that your child is doing the work. And if the work is incomplete and I say to you it's incomplete, then ensure that the child does the work. So it has to be where the parent and the teacher and the students all work together to ensure that we get through this phase until we are able to go back face to face. We can't just hold the teacher and say, well, listen, it's your students and you must get them to do the work. Because when I send that package home, I have no more control over what happens in the home. I can only do my part and I can send my package.
And that's where the demand changes quite often on the teachers, and I know it's very dependent on the parents within the classroom. The obligation is, of course, preparing the package, sending it out, and I guess some lesson plans as well. But how can you actually ensure that this information is going to be imparted to the child?
And again, that has been one of the worries that we have, because you can prepare the best package with as much information as you can find, work that you give all of the examples. But if the child doesn't do the work, if the parent doesn't ensure the child does the work, then what use will it be? The child would be lagging behind. And we realize that right now with the situation, many of our children would not be at the level that they should be, because they're not getting those instructions the way they'll be getting them in the classroom face to face. So we are aware of that. And so when these children return to the classroom, we have to ensure that as teachers, we find where they are and we work with them as best as we can to try and bring them at least as close to or to the point that they should be. And I hope that nobody expects that when the children return to the classroom for face-to-face and when we are able to go full air face-to-face, that our teachers are not being blamed for where the children are in terms of the class level. Because we know being out for a whole year, more than a year, will put back a lot of our children from where they should be, especially the younger ones who need that one-on-one with your phonics, with your math learning numbers and those kinds of things. What we would do in the classroom, the parents might not do at home.
Or know how to do, to be very fair to them either.
And even if you send instructions, some of them don't understand it, some of them can't read it, some of them. So it's a whole lot of issues that are there on the table that will cause our children to maybe not be where they should be. But we have to understand, as teachers, as parents, as ministry, that this will take some time for us to bridge that gap. It can't happen overnight.
Now, the ministry has undertaken kind of a study to understand what are the current challenges due to the pandemic's impact on school. One of those issues has been, they've identified that there are higher incidents of dropouts, especially among young males. And there's also a very clear learning gap that is taking place. Have you seen this data, and what concerns you the most?
It wasn't shared with us, so we haven't seen the results of that information. But again, from all people, from all teachers, sharing what they see in their communities, sharing what they are hearing from parents, and we have seen where a lot of especially those high school students who are in third, fourth form, we see them go and get a job somewhere, and that's it for them. The moment they get a job, they won't go back to that classroom. And we have been hearing from the high school teachers that a lot of their students are not doing their work. When they check in with them, well, miss, I'm working. So the situation at hand might require for some of these students to have to find a work to help their families, to help themselves. And so that is the reality.
So the teachers are reporting that they're seeing that.
Especially the high school students, as I said, the third and fourth farmers.
Let me digress a bit and ask you for your thoughts on the ministry's position to do away with with primary school examinations and other forms of standardized testing.
We did just a quick polling, not just on our Facebook page, to gather from our teachers, what were their thoughts on that. And I would say 99.9% of those teachers who responded were satisfied or were happy with that move. Because a lot of them were saying that the PSC really and truly is used to not just look at where students are in terms of the entire country or students at statistics level, but also at teachers and their performance. And sometimes that is what is being used to say, well, you're a good teacher, this is a good school, this is the best school. And that is not always the case, because not because I have my students coming in top 10, it means that I am the best school. I may have one of 50 students who take the exam in the top 10. Does that mean that my school is the best school? Does it mean that I am the best teacher? And so while people may look at the PSE and the BJAT as one tool with which we can say determine where our children are or how they are doing, that is not the only way to be able to do that. And so it disenfranchises a lot of our children who want to go to certain high schools because you can't get there because your grade wasn't good enough. But the child might be smart enough to be able to get there. So for those schools who use the report card along with the PSE, that child stands a better chance of getting into the school that they would like to get into. But for those schools who use only PSE, then that poses a challenge for that child. And so it seems that our teachers are quite satisfied with that move, and they feel that it is long overdue.
And has there been any, there has to be some level of assessment though,
right,
for implementing the curriculum.
Correct. And so some of them are asking, well, what will be put in place? Because as you said, there has to be a way of assessing where our children are. But that doesn't mean that we have to assess them nationally. They take exams at the end of every semester. At the end of the year, they take an exam that tells you how they've done over the year. And so that can work, but it's whether now what the high schools will be doing in terms of how they will determine who they will accept. Is it that they will not just use an exam? Is it that they will just use the report card grades to determine that? We don't know what would be. I think I heard the ministry saying something would be that or an assessment test that they would be doing. So, but we don't know much about that, what that would be doing, how they will use that information, whether that will be connected to the high schools in any way. We're not aware of that, but something could be put in place to see how the children are performing at the various levels, not just standard 6 and standard 3, but at all the levels, because you want to see where they are moving from one level to the next.
Well, what we're going to do right now, there are other issues that we want to get into. Of course, we know that there is some figuring out for the reduction of the work week as well and how that's going. So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be focusing on more issues. We'll continue our conversation with the president of the Belize National Teachers Union. So please stay tuned.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
The vaccine is now available. We here at Our Friend G Life encourage you to take the vaccine. Belize, it's time to roll up our sleeves.
I'm rolling up mine because I know what COVID can do to families.
Because I want to go back to the way things were.
I'm rolling up mine so that I'm able to do music again.
Because I want to protect my family.
Things are slowly getting back to normal. The new normal, which includes getting vaccinated. Trust the facts. When your turn comes, take the opportunity to get vaccinated. Roll up or believe.
son. How was your first day at sixth form?
Really, really cool. It was great to see my friends, and I really love my teachers.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sorry I wasn't there for your first day, but I'll be back from Corozal next week.
It's okay, Dad. I can't wait to see you. Oh, and please remember, I still have some books I need to purchase.
Ah, yes. Let me e-cash you that right now. Money has been sent. I add a little extra cash just for you.
Whoa, Dad. Thanks. Got it.
You're welcome, sir.
Download the eCash app today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle. For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257. eCash, the future is here.
Whether it's back to the classroom or back on the tablets, the new school year is almost here. We know you missed seeing the children take center stage in 2020, but now Summerfest is back, pandemic style. Join us on August 27th for a virtual celebration of our talented Belizean children. We'll bring you all the family fun and entertainment right in the comfort of your home. Don't worry, we'll still have fantastic giveaways throughout the live show. All you have to do is follow us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ. Our annual Kids Talent Show starts at 6:30 a.m. live on 5 and streamed on Facebook and YouTube. Start your school year right with Summerfest 2021.
And we're back, and we are continuing our conversation with President of the Belize National Teachers Union, Senator Lena Smith. And we've been talking all about the return to the classrooms, what this means for teachers, what it means for parents, and the education system on a whole. Now, one of the most recent developments is the rollout of the curriculum review or curriculum update by the ministry. And I want to hear from you directly as to the level of involvement that teachers had in this process, and how you feel with the pilot project that's being rolled out.
We had one meeting with Dr. Zabane. He met with our council to share with us the book that he wrote. And you know, that book speaks to those kinds of changes that he is suggesting. And so he met with us to share his book, and he gave us a copy of the book. A few of our executive members got a copy of the book as well. We gave five books per branch. And so, you know, we shared with him some of our concerns that relates to what he was sharing with us and what some of those things would mean. So, for example, if it is that we are cutting down on subjects at the various levels, does it mean that, especially at the high school level, does that mean that we will then not need as many teachers? And so what would that mean for our teaching population right now? So if I go from 12 subjects, for example, to offering just 8, what does that mean for our teachers there? How will that impact our teachers, you know? And then we looked at the primary level and how we would be cutting down again those subjects. What would that mean again for our teachers? Because as it is right now, we hear the ministry saying that some of our schools are overstaffed. But when you look at those schools and you look at the number of students per teacher, for the most part, each class would have over 15 students, some of them 20 the least. And so if I have 5 Infant 1 teachers with 20 students, how is that level overstaffed? You know, so must I only have 3 teachers? Because what they are looking at is the overall number of students for the school. So if the school has 1,000 students, you must have so many teachers and so many administrators. And if you have more than what that works out to be, then you are overstaffed, but you are not looking at.
It's based on a ratio, correct?
Correct. So you're not looking at, but it's the way how they look at it, because the thing says a minimum of 15 or 15 to 30. And if they're looking at the minimum, then if every class has 15 or 20 students, you still meet that threshold. But it seemed as if though they were looking at the higher number, so the maximum number, and if you had, again, 1,000 by 30, you must have so many teachers, and a lot of schools are overstaffed. And so those schools then were not given replacement teachers when somebody went on leave or that kind of thing. So how would that impact and how would that further impact our teachers? So that was one of the concerns. Another one of the concerns as it relates to maybe the secondary school teachers or secondary school students was how would that impact the CXC? Because if you are doing less subjects, what would be the ones that would be taken out and how would that impact what we take at the CXC level? But for the infant division, for the most part, our council discussions that we had, our council seemed to have been okay with the reduction for the primary school because we see where a lot of the activities, a lot of agencies who come in and they want to do a project, for example, it gets thrown onto the primary school. And then we have all of these subjects that our students have to take, plus do those things. And when we look at, for example, my days in school, I didn't have all of those subjects. I didn't have all of those books. I didn't have, we used to go to school with slate back in Infant 1, but we still did well. And so is it that we are looking at the quality of what our students get, or is it that we are looking at quantity in terms of number of subjects, number of subject areas? And so I personally, for me, having been teaching for 36, 37 years, I believe that especially for the infant division, that we should be focusing on the basics, reading, writing, math, and get our children to have a good foundation, and then as we move up to the middle and upper division, we can add another 2 or so subjects. And some of these subjects can be integrated. Health science and science can go together as opposed to having science and then health science. Put them together, integrate other subject areas and lessen. Because when you look at these children with these big bags on their back, my goodness.
Yeah. So, in general, the teachers are in agreement with a curriculum review. It's just the details as to how it will be rolled out.
Correct. And what would be the impact on our teachers and our students? You would think that the impact for the students would be a good one, because then they have less things to focus on, and we would be able to spend more time on the important areas for our students, the math, the reading, those kinds of areas that they're putting together. So we know that, we understand that this year they're going to be piloting the new changes, and those changes, those piloting would occur, if I'm correct, I think Dr. Zabani told me, in 4 schools, in 4 government schools, either 4 or 5 schools would be piloting, and then next year they want to do the complete rollout of that new that new curriculum.
Now, one of the things, especially when you start to shift things in the school, is that the parents are usually resistant to change as well. We were joking that the babies, for example, we now know they should be playing as a way of learning, but oftentimes it's the parents who come back with, they're not writing yet, they're not spelling yet. What do you think is important in terms of the engagement of parents this early on, if there's going to be this big shift in the curriculum review? In the curriculum?
Well, it's very critical that our parents understand, and from an early point, that what the change is going to be like, the reason for the change, and how the change is going to affect their children. Yeah. Because we have been accustomed to getting homework every day, for example, and the child gets a whole lot of homework for math, for English, for science, for every day. But we don't really discuss with our parents the purpose of assignments. Why do we give assignments? Is it to just tire the child out? Is it to just get them busy? Assignments are for students to just practice what they learned in school for the day. And so you give them 3, 4 problems, and that should be enough. You don't have to get in 20 or 50 problems. And if I am giving 20 and you give 20 and another one give 20, we are not considering, the time that these children will take to complete all of our assignments. Yeah. So again, parents must be made aware of the purpose of the change, how the change is going to positively impact their students and what they should expect going forward. You can't want to have change but expect the same thing.
So let's shift gears to some other issues. Of course, the last time we had active conversations with the unions, it was about being able to work out with the government the 10% salary cut and all the additional measures that would come in place. Now, the 10% has been implemented, but there still are some details still being sorted through. Tell us about that.
Well, Marlene, we wrote the Prime Minister, the joint unions wrote the Prime Minister a while ago. Because one of the things that we discussed was the formation of the committee, you know, because we are supposed to look at the finances every 6 months to see where we are and to determine, you know, what would be next. And so we wanted to form a committee that would be reviewing, that would be paying attention, you know, to finances, you know, our spending, our collections, that kind of thing, to be able to provide the government with suggestions as to how, you know, how we could better collect, you know, how we could better save. So, in a sense, cost saving and some revenue enhancement measures that we would want to look at. We've not gotten officially a response from the Prime Minister, not even an acknowledgement. And I will tell you, the social partner senators wrote to him as well, and not even an acknowledgement of our letter. So that seemed to be the MO of the Prime Minister, that you write to him and he doesn't respond. We were told on Saturday that some members of the NTUCB, I don't know if they just went there on their own and they heard he was at the, was it the Lang building, I think? And so they just went there and they ended up, you know, having a discussion with him. And so they raised the matter of that committee. And so we are hoping that from that discussion then we will be getting some sort of a feedback from the Prime Minister, and we can start to have those discussions to put that committee in place, because we are now going to September now. And by next month we should be able to have at least our first review of where we are in terms of our finances. So we are hoping for that. The other matter was the matter of the reduction in work hours. And as you are aware, for the public officers, that worked out much easier.
Yeah.
You either go work 8 to 4 or you go work 9 to 5 or some other way, but you know, so that was worked out. And our teachers were really and truly upset because, well, public officers got everything and we not get nothing because we hadn't worked out our 1 hour. We had made it very clear to the minister in those meetings that it's going to be difficult for us as teachers because we don't have any set working hours.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, yes, we
have set
physically
school hours,
teach, right?
yeah.
We physically teach for a number of hours, but after those teaching hours, we still have to prepare work, we have to correct work, we have to make, you know. So really and truly, teachers don't have set hours that we work for the week in terms of all that we have to do. While we have set hours to be in school, I mean, that is different. So anyway, so we met with the ministry and we were discussing, you know, how that could work out. Our concern was how can we do this without impacting our children as much, especially seeing that, you know, where they were for the last school year. And so that was our primary concern. Despite what others might say, we were concerned about our students and how that would affect them. To make a long story short, we ended up we would then take the Fridays off. Because we did a survey and the ministry was involved with that survey to see, well, the first survey we did in-house. And our teachers, we had 3 options because the ministry came around a meeting with us and there were 3 options on the table, 3 suggestions. And a few of those suggestions, we had already discussed those as being to you, and so we would have asked our teachers which of those suggestions they wanted. There was one new one from the ministry, and so we didn't add any more to that. We just sent out those 3 options and the teachers selected. So they selected, working Monday to Thursday, and you're getting the Friday off. Now, let me clearly explain what we mean by off.
Yes.
Friday off meant that you would not be physically teaching, but your children would have to be given work for them to have work to do on Friday. So it's like you are still working for the whole week. It's just that on that Friday you don't have to present yourself in the classroom or online. You know, you can choose, take that day and do whatever you want to do. Yeah, if you want to plan something, if you want to check papers, if you want to relax for the day and do everything weekend, it's up to you. That would have been up to you.
Yeah.
So that was what we, our members had selected. We sent that to the CEO and we informed her of our decision. The minister then went on air and he made that pronouncement that it would be a full day work week. The issue we are having right now, Marlene, and I want to make it very clear, BNTU is a legal agent responsible for bargaining for our teachers, whether it's your salaries, your condition of services. BNTU is a legal agent. Now there are other stakeholders in the education sector that the ministry would want to hear from, for example, BAPS. So you would want to hear from these principals, you know, what are their thoughts on this matter. But BAPS does not make the decision for teachers. And it seems right now that the ministry seem to be waiting to hear from BAPS to see what BAPS will say for them to finalize the decision. And that should not be. BAPS doesn't make decisions for teachers. And we keep saying that to the ministry, and for some reason, it's like they are refusing to understand that. Anything that will
perhaps it's deliberate that they're sort of playing one against the other?
Exactly, and this continues to happen. It's either BAPS or management or you know, we meet to this one and then that one and then that one. Yes, they are stakeholders and you want to hear from them, but you must respect the fact that BNTU is the legal bargaining agent for these teachers, and whenever you are changing anything to do with their wages, their conditions of service, it is the union who you negotiate with, not these other bodies. So I am not saying that you should not hear from them. Don't get me wrong. Yes, you listen to them, you hear from them, but you come to us to make that final decision. You don't go and make the decision with them and then come and tell us this is what you will do. It's going to create problems, and we have been warning the ministry from
But you have already
time and time.
communicated to the ministry that the
Yes.
teachers collectively have accepted to
Correct.
have Friday as a non-teaching day.
Correct. But what we are hearing now, and we wanted to have that official memo out before today, because classes begin today for secondary school teachers. And we have been getting feedback from our teachers that some of these principals have already prepared a full work week for them. And their schedule says Monday to Friday. There's no off day for these secondary school teachers, some of them. One. Two, some of them have reported that their principals are telling them that even if the Friday is off, that they must report to school on that Friday because they will be having meetings, they will be having workshops. That is not.
They're still going to be assigned school-related stuff.
And that is not the agreement that we had. That is not the agreement that we had. And so that's why I'm saying.
So the agreement is if they don't want to go to school, they're not required to work on that day.
Right. That is our agreement that and we discussed that with the ministry. And we were told the minister has already said that it will be 4 days, and so that is what it's going to be. So why now are we having all of these different variations in what that Friday will be? What we have to understand.
Let's go back a bit, just for my clarity. So, as a teacher, if you're saying that you are still required to have students do work on Friday, is it perhaps a form of an assignment? Because if you were to go to school on Friday, you give the students homework to do over the weekend, right? Saturday and Sunday. So it would be the same concept in effect?
Correct. So, so the students can probably be doing a project on that day.
Okay.
You know, you give them some sort of maybe a research to do, something where the child is going to be engaged, but the teacher doesn't have to be physically present to oversee these students. Now, keep in mind though that Friday is not really an off day, because you still have to prepare the work for the entire week.
Yeah.
You still have to check that work anyway when the child brings it back. So it's not that you are going to be teaching Monday to Thursday and then not doing anything on Friday or not doing anything for Friday. You have to
your
plan
weekly
for the whole
scheme
week.
includes Friday,
Correct.
even though you're not going to be physically there in the classroom.
Correct. So some of these persons have been trying to be very exact and saying, well, you know what, but Senator, that is going to be 6 hours. That's more than the 5 hours that we are giving you. That is going to be 5.5. That's half hour more than come on, half hour, an hour.
But
how
see,
much more time do we give preparing these things?
Yeah.
I want, you know, this was part of the conversation at the point of negotiation that I know you had been very vocal about, that where the government was saying with a 10% cut, you can cut down on work hours. It simply wasn't an easy formula for teachers.
Correct.
Because you have face-to-face time in the classroom on in a regular school year, but there's all the preparatory stuff, and there's also all the checking and planning and preparing the classroom that has to take place. There's no time measurement for that.
And that is why our teachers are saying, but in reality, we're not getting any time. Even if you give me Friday off, I still have all of this extra work that I have to do every day on a daily basis, including my weekends. And so while I may be free from being physically present to teach on that day, I still have to do all of this work. And so the only time that I am being given is that Friday where I will not be physically present in a classroom setting. And still we are having some issues, as I said, you know, some administrators are saying to their teachers that you must come here for a 1-hour meeting every Friday, or you must come and do workshop every Friday. I mean, come on, why is it that we are allowing these other entities to make the decision for our teachers when we know that the union is the legal agent?
But the union has communicated to the ministry, and the ministry has announced.
Correct.
That it will be a 4-day work week.
Correct, but it seems as if though some of these administrators want to do this thing in their own way, and so they might not be satisfied with a 4-day work week, and so they want to do it how they want to do it. And the reason why we agreed on that, because we wanted it to be the same across the board. We don't want to have this school having Monday off and the other one Wednesday and the other one Friday. It had to be standardized, so that all across the country we are doing the same thing. And that is the reason why we had looked at that option, because that would have been a standardized approach to everything.
Now, there's so much flexibility that is required around this time. I think in being able to find solutions that work for most. It can't work for all.
Right.
Because even when you consider things like rural schools, they already get one Friday off during the month. You know, moving forward, had there been the return of classroom face-to-face, this would have been the model either way, 4 days of classroom time?
Yes, because remember now, it's the government's, what word did they use? Yeah, but you know, what they were giving us. And so even if we never asked for it, they were giving it to us. And so whether we were face-to-face or we were online, it would still end up with the same, with that same decision that we had to make. And so we try to find the least distracting situation, you know, the one that would benefit or would be able to go across all levels. And I know that for secondary schools, yes, they are concerned because maybe high food farmers, CXC, you know, those kinds of things. But it doesn't mean that the children will not be occupied on a Friday. They would still be getting work to do, so the teachers would still be putting in work.
So the teachers prepares 5 days worth of school of work, but they would only be required to teach for 4 days.
Correct. Correct.
Now, I mean, it's hard to even imagine that it was just a short while ago, but the unions, and especially the teachers' union, went on a historic strike. What was the total? Was it 11 weeks?
5 weeks.
5 weeks, sorry. In pushing back against this salary cut. Looking at things as they are today, how are teachers doing, having had to face this financial crunch that they work so hard to fight against?
A lot of them are not doing well in terms of financially, because again, our teachers, we don't have the luxury of getting all of these benefits and allowances and that kind of thing. So you have to buy your own uniform. For the most part, most of them they have to find their way to school. You know, you have to fix up your class. Well, you don't have to, but teachers have been accustomed to fixing up the classroom without support, or with least support or minimal support from schools or managements. And so all of those things are out-of-pocket expenses that teachers have to go through. And so with the 10% cut, you still have to do those other things. You still have to get your uniform. You still have to, you know, travel to school every day. You have to get your lunch every day. And some administrators, they don't seem to be in an understanding mood right now. They still expect teachers to still do what they would normally do and, you know, have your classroom well fixed up. 1. 2, we also have the ministry who normally comes in to visit your classroom, and they come with a checklist. And so you have to have all of these things in your classroom checked off, and if you don't have them, then, you know, the school is placed at a certain level. And so then, if the ministry is pressuring the administration, they pressure the teachers.
And the cost is borne by the teacher.
Borne by the teacher. And so there is no pressure from the ministry on management to say, listen, as a manager of this school, you must provide these resources. That pressure isn't there, but the pressure is on the teachers. And so we keep saying to the ministry, you all have to start pressuring management, because the moment a teacher does something wrong, the rules are thrown at us. You know, you are sanctioned, you are dealt with because you disobey a rule. But when the management, they don't do what they ought to do, Who is there pressuring, who is there sanctioning them? We hardly ever hear of that, we hardly ever see that. And that has to be addressed, because our teachers can't continue to cope with these expenses, especially right now with this salary cut, one. Two, if your children in your class don't have their textbooks, there are a lot of our teachers who provide books for our students. They provide meals for them. They help with uniform, you know. So with all of these, teachers are still doing those things, and right now it is difficult because with their own children going to school, with the decrease in salary, transportation going up, food going up, everything going up, our teachers have been complaining that it is really tough on a lot of them.
The Public Service Union reacted when they heard reports of persons who were exempted from the 10% cut. The CEOs, for example, looking at the increase in the Governor General salary, and also the judiciary. The Teachers Union, though, didn't put out a position.
Right. We didn't put out a release or anything of that sort, but you would have heard my presentation in the Senate. And we made it very clear that we were not in support of that any at all. In none of our discussions that we had, none of our consultation that we had with the government side, was it ever mentioned that those persons would have been exempted. We only discussed those persons earning less than $1,000 per month. Those were exempted from the cut. And we understood that, because when we looked at those persons and we look at what they were earning, actually those persons we actually couldn't afford. So we had to have a heart and say, listen man, somebody earning $600 or $700 a month, come on, how will they survive? Now we have teachers and public officers who are not earning much over $1,000, either $1,200 per month, and they're getting a 10% cut. It's hard on them as well. But we figured, that let's be considerate of those less fortunate, if you want to call it that way. But in terms of the CEOs, there was never any discussions to have those persons exempt from this 10% cut. And we have to understand that some of these persons are new persons. Well, most of the CEOs are new, because when the government changes, the new government brings in their own people. So it's not like they were there before and they were getting all of these monies for 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years ago, and oh, you cut me suddenly. They are just coming in, and you are just coming in and you want to get all of these benefits and you don't want to sacrifice with us. The government, the Prime Minister, the Senate, everybody, churches, everybody who voted for the cut, they were saying we must all sacrifice together. So why are they that more important than us? So are we not equal then? So we work and they work, but we must suffer because of them. And those are the persons who are getting the biggest benefits. The biggest benefit. Marlene, we don't, as I said, we don't get no uniform allowance, We don't get no telephone allowance. We don't get no gas allowance. And still we got a 10% cut with our small salaries. If you compare, for example, my salary that I'm getting right now as a teacher with a master's degree, and look at what a public officer who has a master's degree is earning, it's a huge difference. Pay scales, I don't know, for 16 to 21, something of that sort. It's a huge difference. So why should you be exempt? And then the Governor General, we said clearly that we are not against the Governor General earning a proper salary, but the time is not right. The government doesn't have the funds, they can't afford it, so let the Governor General wait until the 3 years is up and the government can afford it, and then she gets her proper salary. There was never a thing that, oh well, she shouldn't be getting, proper compensation. The time isn't right. She has to.
Is the argument then that, well, we're adjusting the salary, if that were the case, for one individual, as opposed to the vast majority of teachers and public officers in this case?
Well, exactly. If you are telling me that you have to cut me and then I'm going to give you and I'm going to give you, then are you cutting me to give you? Why are you cutting me? And why is it that at this time when the country can't afford it, you need to have that amount of money? Why can't you survive on the 57 that you were getting initially? And then you are the same person who have to sign off on the bill that says you will cut my salary, and then you have to sign off on one that says, but I will increase my salary. How does that look? I mean, come on. As a person who has, we are always saying that she's a humble person, she comes from a humble beginning, she loves her people, then think about us. How do you feel to see that you, a person from a humble beginning, just like myself, we are from the same district, you feel the need to get this increase at this time. It doesn't come across well. It doesn't make for good relationships. It doesn't give the correct signal of the government that you want for people to work with you, but you turn around and you go and behind our backs you exempt these persons from this sacrifice that you want all of us to take.
So at the 6-month check-in, which is due, as you said, in September, part of the negotiation was that you'd be able to form a committee where you'd review finances. That would be an opportunity for you to look at those measures?
Well, we are hoping so. We know that the Deputy Prime Minister, at least, and I think it was Honorable Fonseca, had indeed said that they didn't agree with the CEOs being exempt. And so we do see that those are two persons of the negotiating team, of the consultation team, and they were not in agreement with the decision of Cabinet. So we are hoping that those persons would go back to their colleagues and would have that discussion and would see or understand the need for us to be all on the same page. If we are all suffering, let us all suffer together. It can't be that you are better than me. Can't be.
All right. Well, Elena, President Smith, we've covered quite a bit this morning. Before we close off, though, today is the resumption of school for secondary schools, and next week primary level starts. What's your message on behalf of the teachers to the wider public, to parents who are about to take on this challenge once again, and understanding the flexibility that's required by all at this moment?
Well, I would like to encourage our students to, take your time to do your work, be engaged in your online classes, ensure that you log on every day, and you just don't log on, but you're attentive to what is going on in the classroom, and you do what you must do as a student. To our parents, I want to ask you to understand the current situation, support your children. You find a quiet place for them in your home, ensure that they are behind that computer every day and they're not just sitting there, but that they are engaged, that you can discuss with them to see, what are they learning, what concerns they have, what questions they have, and encourage them to reach out to their teachers for help if they need the help. Because that is the one thing that we are hearing, that with the online, because they're not face-to-face, they don't reach out to their teachers to ask for help. And so, especially those who are shy. So encourage your children to do that. And teachers, all I can ask you to do is to do your best. Once you do your best, there's nothing else that anybody else can say. And so I am pleading to you to ensure that you are on time for your classes, that you work with your children as best as you can, that you make yourselves available for them when they need that extra help, and that you understand their situation and you do your best to give them the best that you can give them. Right now, we know that you are concerned regarding your vaccine and having to take that test every 2 weeks, but we are hoping that as we continue to discuss with the minister, that maybe something can be worked out, especially now that they are working from home. They don't have to be in the classroom, and so there might not be the need for them to have to present those negative tests at this point in time because they're not around the students. So we hope that can be worked out. And we wish all of you all the best. Continue to do a great job.
All right. And with that, we want to say thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate the update from the union's perspective as we start yet another school year in the midst of a pandemic. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be finding out more about the Belize Culture Symposium. So please, stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
The Social Security Board, in collaboration with the Labor Department, takes this opportunity to remind insured persons of the requirements for compensation when on sick leave. Any employee who has worked with an employer for at least 2 months is entitled to 16 working days of sick leave with full pay every year. This is how it works. Upon approval of a sickness or injury benefit claim by SSD, 80% of the employee's weekly insurable earnings is paid as a Social Security benefit, and the difference in the employee's salary is paid by the employer. This is to ensure that the employee does not suffer any loss of wages when ill. After 16 days, compensation for sick leave is paid as a Social Security benefit only. Some conditions apply. This message is brought to you by the Social Security Board and the Labor Department. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
Smart continues to expand its internet coverage countrywide to help you live a smarter life.
Our villagers are very happy. They are pleased to know that Smart went the extra mile to put a tower in our village so that our villagers can get live stream on their TVs and they can get their kids doing their online classes. I want to say to Smart, thank you for making it possible for us to get internet in Gardenia Village. We really do appreciate it.
Smart continues to take the internet and mobile services to communities across Belize. Now save even more when you bundle your Smart broadband with Smart mobile services. Smart, bringing people together.
How does the AstraZeneca vaccine work? The vaccine provides support to help your body develop immunity to the virus that causes COVID-19. The body is left with a supply of memory cells that will remember how to fight the virus. It takes a few weeks for the body to produce the antibodies after vaccination. How long does it take to build immunity after taking the first dose of the vaccine? There is protection 14 days after a person's first dose. However, that initial protection may decline over time, which is the reason why it is so important to get the second shot. How long after the first dose should one take the second dose? The second dose should be given between week 8 and week 12. Are there any deaths associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine? There have been no deaths associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine. Vaccines save lives. They remain the safest, most effective, and cost-effective medical tool developed. Increased uptake of the vaccine is the best way to stop this pandemic, save lives, and return to normalcy.
This Monday on Get the Facts. What are the risks for children with the new COVID variant? Should you vaccinate your child? When will children be able to return to the classrooms? Get the Facts with pediatrician Dr. Cecilia Eck, Ministry of Health Dr. Natalia Baer, and CEO of the Ministry of Education, Diane Mejia. The show starts at 7:30 p.m. on Monday, August 23rd. Catch it live on Channel 5 or streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Send your questions to 672-5555 or via Facebook using hashtag #GetTheFacts.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform.
Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go.
You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code.
Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle.
The future is here with eCash.
For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
Whether it's back to the classroom or back on the tablets, the new school year is almost here. We know you missed seeing the children take center stage in 2020, but now Summerfest is back, pandemic style. Join us on August 27th for a virtual celebration of our talented Belizean children. We'll bring you all the family fun and entertainment right in the comfort of your home. Don't worry, we'll still have fantastic giveaways throughout the live show. All you have to do is follow us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ. Our annual Kids Talent Show starts at 6:30 a.m. live on 5 and streamed on Facebook and YouTube. Start your school year right with Summerfest 2021.
And welcome back. Our final conversation this morning, as we mentioned prior to the commercial, is a discussion on the Belize Culture Symposium. With us in studio this morning is a director and a lecturer at the University of Belize, April Martinez. Good morning.
Hey, thank you.
We also have with us education and heritage professional and archaeologist Sylvia Batty. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
All right, ladies. Belize Culture Symposium. What are we looking at? Where do we start from in terms of understanding this first of its kind event?
First of its kind, all right. First thing, it's free. Yes, free online for everybody, internationally, nationally, anybody could tune in.
Yeah. Unique tidbits of information about Belize that only we understand, right?
Yes, definitely. Yes. So it's a free symposium. It's virtual. So we are going to be hosting it on Facebook and on our YouTube channel.
Okay.
So if you go to the Heritage Education Network Belize Facebook or YouTube channel, there are events. So you can sign up for the events for day 1, day 2, day 3. We have 40 presenters, 40. Wow. We have a solid 3-day lineup. Yeah. And we're looking at culture, so Belizean culture. We're looking at food. So our symposium, Culture Symposium, it's an acronym for keeping up with language, culture, heritage, and arts. And that really incorporates sort of, yes, everything. It incorporates the thematic areas.
Just a creolized
No, because we needed a theme, right?
Yeah.
And our network is called Heritage Education Network Belize. And so we said, well, Belize is the theme. Yeah. Everything that is Belize, and then everybody that wanted to present the light, does it have to be surrounding something specific? And we said no. As long as you did research in Belize, about Belize, it's everything Belizean. So that Belizean culture. Yes. And so we needed something that incorporated all things Belize, and that's when we came up with the keeping up with languages, culture, heritage and arts.
Yes. Also known as culture.
Yes. Also known as culture. We even had one of our viewers said, wouldn't you spell it culture with a O? And we said, well, that kind of mess up the acronym a little bit.
But let's step back for a minute. You have this very young network that you have started in COVID times.
Yes.
Tell us how you all came together and what the goal was.
Well, so it's 4 female archaeology-led network. All of us that are directors are female and archaeologists. And one of our directors, Ella Bekeshi, she's in Hungary. Hi, Ella. She came to Sylvia. Yes. And we were in the midst of this pandemic and trying to figure out how we can help our friends and families that were affected in the arts, heritage, and tourism section. And so we wanted to be that voice for the smaller groups that, like the artisan on the roadside, the leader would braid the hair, the person would beat the drum on the roadside, that needed that tourism traffic to get ahead. And they would have been immediately affected more so than the larger corporations. So we wanted to be that group that helped the little guy out during COVID. Yes, so the 4 of us individually have done a lot of community-based work. April through the University of Belize, myself through quite a number of community archaeology efforts. Ella Bekeshi, that was mentioned, she was just starting an ethical tourism
company that would have brought tours from Europe into northern Belize in some of the more remote areas. And we realized right in the middle of the pandemic that none of that would be possible, and that these these community members, local small grassroots organizations were really, really struggling. So we said, how do we solve this problem? How do we immediately provide support? Now, financially would have been the easiest way. That's what everybody needed at that point in time. But we realized that that was probably the most difficult thing to provide these communities with. So the next best thing we thought was professional development that they could use after the pandemic or through the pandemic. So we focus a lot on archaeology materials because we are archaeologists, but we also focus quite a bit on business support. So we look at artisan groups, tour operators, tour guides as small micro enterprises on their own. So we give targeted support for that. We're looking at how do you make your Facebook page accessible? How do you represent yourself on social media? What free resources can we put online on Facebook virtually that can be accessible to these communities, that will allow them to be visible, that will allow them to sort of have a place in that Belizean market? Because a lot of times, like, you hear of these really, really wonderful businesses and you go to them and you're like, oh, I never knew this existed. I never knew this was here. And a lot of that is because you're not on social media. And a lot of that really, like, the success of a small business oftentimes hinges on that visibility. And that's sort of the areas that we focus on in the past year.
And we noticed that created a large traffic for local tourism. We were trying to get our Belizean community to see these smaller communities and to support them in any way that they could. And we quickly realized the limitations of no data, no internet, no cell service. And that kind of brought us to, okay, now this is COVID, we can't physically go to these communities. How else can we help? I think we ended up having to track down the granddaughter or the daughter at this elder and then try to figure out how to get to that elder and then promote their small business or promote their organization or their gift shops. And that we're still working on those things as we go along, but that created the space for things on our website and on our projects like Heritage Highlight, our Garifuna Culture project, and now
our free ebooks and e-learning materials.
We have all of that on our website. And so the quickest thing that we wanted to do, well, not the quickest thing actually, we've been planning this symposium since May. Yes. And we wanted a space prominently for Belizeans. We wanted to show that Belizeans are doing research about their heritage and about their communities, and we wanted a space where they can discuss that and show Belize that, yes, we have cool things happening. And
so they're all Belizean presenters?
Not all Belizeans. So we have some of our international friends that have done archaeology in Belize for 20, 30 years. They're going to present some of their work. But we were very, very surprised and happy when we saw that a majority of it was Belizean researchers.
Did you reach out to them or you did an open call?
We did an open call. Yeah, we did an open call and we had 47. So there were a couple that couldn't, we just didn't have the space for the 3 hours. So even though all of our presenters may not be Belizean, all the research is
about Belize.
So all of it.
Everything.
And as educators, I think we also realize that there is such a need for access to information, for access to current research, and also for that research to really speak to the immediate solutions that it can create. And this is what we hope will come from this forum.
Yes, we got archaeology, history, music, arts, tourism, artisans, food. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
How will it all be rolled out over the 3-day period?
So we have organized our symposium, as you can see on the screen, on different thematic areas. So because we had an open call, we had such a wide variety of papers. So we grouped them based on the thematic areas that we saw come out in the topics and in the abstracts. And so we'll present the thematic areas. So post-contact Belize, for example, we're looking at archaeology in the historic period, archaeology of the Maya in the 1500s, archaeology of Lamanai in the 1500s, archaeology of northern Belize in sort of that time period, which is a time period that we really don't understand. And when we're hearing of decolonizing our curriculum, decolonizing our national narratives, when we hear that we've got to bring forward these histories of people that have been traditionally underrepresented in Belize. That is the area of research that we're looking at. So we've organized thematic sessions. All our presentations have been pre-recorded. So those presentations will then be aired. So we'll have 2 or 3 presentations that will be aired. And then the presenters will be online live to answer questions and to do that audience engagement. So we asked for pre-recorded presentations because we love our Belizean people, but we realize Belizean people work on Belizean time and a symposium cannot be run on Belizean time.
I mean, not even Belizeans, but just anybody that wants to talk about research in general.
They get so passionate.
They do, and we gave a guide on how long your presentation should be. We gave a guide on how you can do your presentation, how you can upload your videos and so forth. And people still send things for like 40 minutes.
Yeah, our longest presentation was 40 minutes and our time cap was 15. So we've got some work to do with some of our presenters. But we also know that we live in the time of,
shorter attention spans.
Shorter attention spans, but also technical difficulties. I don't think I have been to any symposium where there hasn't been a technical difficulty. I'm knocking on
face to face.
So we're hoping that our one does not have any technical difficulties, but to sort of preempt all of those issues that we may have come across, and we decided that doing it pre-recorded would have been easier, but still having the presenters there right after those thematic sessions to engage with the audience, because that's really important to us. We want this information to be presented in a way that Belizeans will understand, that Belizeans will connect, that Belizeans feel represented, that they feel visible through this information. Another thing about our symposium is that we have quite a few community groups and community organizations that are presenting. So we have women's groups, we have people who run and organize their own NGOs, we have people...
Garifuna University Without Walls.
University Without Walls. Yes, they will be presenting as well. Miss Adela Peterson from up north, who has done quite a bit with her community museums. San Lazaro Museum. San Lazaro is so close.
Miss Felicita Canton.
Miss Felicita Canton. She will be presenting as well. This is her. It's a wonderful woman.
We have definitely gotten that variety of from the north all the way to the south. For full-blown Belizean representation.
Our good friend Sean Quillen will be there talking about his favorite topic.
We got food.
And the bad mind, why Belizeans are obsessed with bad mind, Lyra Spang, who is also, so knowledgeable as an anthropologist in the country.
Yes.
This is, I find it so interesting, these types of symposiums. The most recent one was the one from the Taiwanese students, and I remember watching and just thinking, my gosh, the data that people have collected about this country and understanding why we are how we are, it's just that we don't get to hear it so often. And this is one great opportunity because you have such a wide array of topics.
The thing is that it's not new, right? Research in Belize is not new. We've been having this kind of work done since the 60s. And the unfortunate thing about it is that there is no space to present it. There's no platform to put it. I remember taking my students to the BAS, the Belize Archaeology Symposium for the first time, I think in like 2018. And there were students there from San Ignacio saying, Miss, I live here and I never heard about this thing before. And it was an eye-opener that there were places in Belize that have archaeology, that have other kinds of research that they never even knew about, things happening in their own backyard. And so what we want for this symposium is not just for you to see a presentation once. That's why we'll have it on our YouTube page as well, where you can go back and watch it again and get accurate information, because we're still researchers and academics, and we want to make sure that the information that we put out is accurate, accessible, and you can use it in your everyday life. Knowledge is fun.
Yeah.
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 Spoken like a true academic.
But no, I mean, I'm fascinated. I looked through your catalog, and there's so many people on that list that we've interviewed before. And every time they come here, I'm like, why don't more people know about this?
Yes.
The Maya Writing Club, for example, is one that's fascinating. Learning to write. All these are, you're talking about gangs, you're talking about violence, you're talking about food, culture, all different cultures. How do you pick which ones you are really excited about? And you gotta give us some. I won't be unfair and ask you to pick one. But what's some of the top on the list that you think, man, this is really gonna resonate with people?
For me, it's big. Well, I can't speak for Sylvia, but for me, we are, most of us are specialized in Maya archaeology and Mesoamerican archaeology. So, and I love that. I'll forever love that. I love dealing with, well, my specialty is human remains. So burials, all kinds of stuff like that, that's great. And I work with that on a regular basis. And I'm an academic as well. I teach at UB. And so all of that academic research, that's great and I love it. But I really want to look at stuff that I don't know. So anything that is post-colonial, I want to see. The ecological knowledge, I really want to see that, because those are things that I'm not aware of. And even the archaeology ones that are not in my specialization, I'm interested in. There's this one with the ancient musical instruments. I don't know anything about that. And so that would be great to see. I don't tell you the one at Bad Mind. I really, really want to see that. Dr. Sprang is a great presenter, and so I'm very, very excited about her presentation. And I really want to see Sean Quillen's presentation as well.
You also got something on steel pan there that's interesting.
Yes, Alexander Evans is one of our presenters, and he done very good foot in order.
Well, yeah. There's so many. Like April said, I think one of the ones that really stood out to me was Myron Medina.
Oh, Myron Medina.
And
yes.
So that is looking at ancient Maya numbers and number system and sort of its application to city.
And the way he's putting it is Maya number application to making traditional artifacts and how they created certain things. So like, how many knots does it take to make a weaving basket? That sort of stuff.
So you see numbers and patterns and the cyclical representation of numerical system that the Maya would have used in art.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different
And
place
he's not using archaeology,
to look
he's
at it,
using traditional Maya skills of today.
And he is coming from a mathematics background, not an archaeology background. So I'm really interested to see how that paper comes.
Yes.
Right? That was my question. It's like, these numbers are not random.
Makes sense because they were very pattern oriented.
You would never think about it. You would never think about it.
And it's amazing that these connections are not made by archaeologists, they're made by mathematicians, and they're made by people who are observing as outsiders into a different discipline. So I'm very excited about that one. Yes. Weaving indigenous Maya mathematics alongside Maya elders in Belize.
And so the best part about this is that anyone can access it at any time. Live is better because you can ask the question.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you know, it'll be there on our Facebook page, it'll be there on our YouTube page. We wanted to make sure, and I think we quickly realized that people were starting to notice it more on social media, and so we decided to push it more on Facebook. And then I think one of our students wrote a paper and referenced us in it through our YouTube page. And I said, okay, so we have to push that avenue too, because TikTok, YouTube, Instagram,
No, people love YouTube because they can put it on their TV. We found that very quickly. It's so much easier than using your phone, right?
Yes. Right.
And they have the same experience since a lot of people don't use traditional forms of media anymore. But the issue is, though, I think the opportunity people have in being able to hear and learn new perspectives and kind of just a snapshot of all the data that's gone, all the research that has gone into it. This is a great opportunity.
And this is recent research too. People that have been studying a few things from like 2010 and so forth to now. And I think that for the most part, some of this research is still ongoing.
Okay.
Like for example, Myron, he's still working on that. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that some people are doing old research that they've already kind of had their results and everything and their conclusions. But we want to do this for as long as possible. So this is our first symposium as a young organization, and it's our baby. We're truly proud of it, and I think that the Belizean community will be so excited to see the work that has been done. And I think that in order to get our education system to a bar where it needs to be, producing something like this to a younger generation shows them that they can do more in their communities.
And we're so thankful to Honorable Francis Fonseca, Minister of Education, Culture, Science and Technology, for delivering the keynote address for our symposium. So I think that sort of shows the support and the commitment from the ministry to supporting endeavors like this. And I will say that April and I both have day jobs, so this is what we do in the evenings for fun. This is what we do for fun. And yes, our four-person organization is really supported by a strong network of volunteers. So all of this is volunteer work that we're seeing. So all of our time, all of the effort, the graphics, the social media, all of that was volunteer work. So volunteer work and free Facebook videos and platforms.
Yes, we technically have we don't have a social life. Hendy is our social life, and but it's something that we put a lot of work into, and I think that again, the public is going to be excited to see it. I didn't think so many people wanted this until we put it out, and that's when we realized, okay, we have to do 110%.
So, do you have to register to participate in the symposium?
You don't have to register to participate, but if you want updates, if you want to know who's presenting, if you want to see those graphics, then we ask that you go to our Facebook page. That's Heritage Education Network Belize. And we have links for you to register to day 1, day 2, and day 3. So it's 3 separate links. And you register in there. We are posting discussions. In the discussions, we are posting graphics in there. We are posting links to the researchers. We have tagged a lot of the researchers. So you know what? If you're a young professional and you want to access that researcher, if you want to reach out to them, if you want to talk to them, if you want to share your research, then send them a message, write a comment there. If you want to talk or have that discussion with other people who are sort of interested in the same things that you are, in different things, you know, that is a space and a forum for that to occur. So you can sign up on our website, in our Insta, in our bio. We have the links to the Facebook events, but you know, Facebook is the primary platform for this symposium.
It's an 8 to 4 symposium. It's all day, and so that's why we post out the schedule early, so that you can go and you can see and you can read a little bit about what the presentations are about, so that you can tune into the ones that you want.
Of course.
Right? And I know it's like in the middle of the week and everything, but you know, you could find like 20 minutes of your time to listen to Bad Mind presentations.
Clearly this is the one we're doing.
Sean Quillen's presentation close to lunch, so you know, right around that time.
I think we did that on purpose.
Well, this is definitely something to look forward to. It starts on September 1st. It's 3 days. Over 40 presentations on research being done about Belize and things Belizean-like. It's keeping up with language, culture, heritage, and the arts, also known as Culture Symposium. And this is by the very new Heritage Education Network Belize. Ladies, thank you for the effort that you put into this symposium, and thank you for joining us today and telling us all about it. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you
guys
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our final break, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.
Imagine going through your entire day without the burden and risk of carrying cash on you. Belize's shift to digital wallets has begun with eCash. We can now skip the cash when collecting money or paying for our essentials, all while using a fast, easy, and secure platform.
Simply add funds to your wallet via bank transfer or at an agent, and you're good to go.
You will be able to make quick, easy payments simply by scanning QR codes. And best of all, it all happens just like that. Payments are as easy as clicking a link online or scanning a QR code.
Download the eCash app from the Google Play and Apple App Store today and take your first step into a cashless lifestyle.
The future is here with eCash.
For more information, visit www.e-cash.com or contact us via WhatsApp at 613-0257 to find out more.
The TV you love is always with you, from live TV, sports, and on-demand titles. Choose your plan today. Plans start as low as $15 per month. My TV, entertainment, anytime, anywhere.
Es un hecho. Únicamente con Smart obtienes todo realmente ilimitado. Solo con Smart obtienes datos ilimitados en cualquier momento. Mientras que con el otro proveedor solo son datos dobles los fines de semana. Con datos ilimitados todos los días no hay necesidad de esperar, así que es un hecho que nuestros planes ilimitados superan a la competencia. Por lo tanto, no permita que le digan cómo y cuándo usar sus datos. Y obtenga llamadas, mensajes de texto y datos ilimitados. Vive la verdadera experiencia de planes ilimitados con Smart. Es un hecho. Haga el cambio y viva Smart.
And we're back.
We are back. She's kind of excited about this cultural symposium.
I know, right? Yeah.
Everything that comes along with it in terms of the language, culture, heritage.
Yeah.
Food.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of talking points after that symposium.
Over 40 presentations, and I think, we were scrolling the list a bit on the screen earlier, so you can see it's extremely diverse. But what I love about it, Isani, is that there are a lot of things in Belize that we know, somewhat understand, but when we are able to hear from people who spend sometimes their whole profession understanding more about it, it opens our eyes as to why we do what we do. And that's a part of forming your identity and understanding your identity. What these ladies are doing as a Heritage Education Network Belize is definitely commendable, and also the fact that it will be free and accessible to all. Even those of you in the diaspora, because we know you love bragging about Belize, you can be sure to share this link as well so that everyone can see it.
Definitely.
All right,
of course, our conversation with Senator Smith with regards to the state of education and the reopening of schools, all the preparation that has gone into what would have been the return to face-to-face at the beginning of this academic year, that too was an interesting conversation.
Of course, it was important. We started off the show with an eye-opener that talked about taking different perspectives into account. And while we've heard from the ministry, we've done some stories with schools and students. We heard this morning from the teachers' representative. There are clearly some areas where there's much alignment with the current moves by the ministry, including curriculum review, letting go of the PSC, but there are some issues there that still have to be fully worked out, which includes the reduction in the work week for teachers. And of course, we'll provide that update and more in our newscast tonight at 6 p.m. But that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes
to start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.